Boys and girls, welcome this morning to our class. And today's class is going to discuss what can we do to become real. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. We all want to be real people. We want to bring out the best of ourselves. But how do we know we are really real? And this is what we're going to talk about. And this is in connection with our davening. Reading every morning a little bit of the davening, of the prayers. And we're continuing the section before we read the morning Shema, the early Shema. That's the pre-Shema Shema. On page 16. So we were first speaking about how we are all really nothing. We had lots of classes about how, compared to Hashem, we are absolutely a speck of dust. The only true existence is Hashem, and we are absolutely nothing compared to Hashem. But now we come to the however. However, although we are nothings, bona fide nothings, but we are a something. We are a something not because of ourselves, not because of our own greatness, but because Hashem loves us, and Hashem chose us, and Hashem made a covenant with us, and Hashem is relying on us, depending on us, turning to us to be good. And that's very important to him. So if we're important to God, we're important. So although really, the big picture, we are nothings compared to Hashem, but Hashem himself made us a something. But now, as part of that discussion, he speaks on top of page 16, but we are your nation, the people of your covenant. Paragraph number 2 on page 16, if you have the English Siddur. The children of Abraham, your beloved. So we are somebody because God made a covenant. He made a covenant with Abraham. He made a covenant with the Jewish people. We are the people of your covenant. Remember, God made a covenant with us, with our parents, with our forefathers, the patriarchs and matriarchs. And then afterwards, he also made another covenant that he made with us at Mount Sinai. Can you hear me now? Can't hear me.
It's a little muffled.
A little muffled. Okay. So we're going to try. My internet connection is unstable, as I state. Okay. Is it getting a little better? Let me know. Am I better now? I just want to know if I stabilized. Okay, I'm stable. Okay, good. Good. So we can hear me now. Very good. Okay. So, thanks for letting me know. If ever the sound goes down, please notify me. But we have a covenant with God, not with Rogers or with Bell. Their covenant is unstable. We have a rock, we have Hashem that we have a covenant with. So, speak about the covenant with Abraham, and he speaks about Abraham. He describes Abraham over here. We are the children of Abraham. Ohavcha, your beloved. God loved Abraham, but also many times it speaks about Abram Oyavi. Abraham loved God. Because Abraham loved God, therefore God made a covenant with him. But the truth of the matter is we have to ask the question, why do we speak about Abraham's love, about his kindness? We learned just a little bit earlier, a few weeks ago, that God tested Abraham. Abraham, the kind and generous person that he was, God wanted to see him if he was real. What does it mean that he's real? Real means that his dedication to God went beyond his nature. God wanted to see and test him, to see whether he can overcome his kindness for God. What does that mean? That's why God tested him with bringing his son Isaac on the altar. God said, if you really love me, show me that you're able to even be greater than your love. What do you love most in your life? Your son. your child. Give him up for me. Are you prepared for that? And God gave Abraham the ultimate test, and of course, Abraham passed with flying colors. He brought his son onto the altar, and God said, wasn't planning on actually taking him, but I wanted to see how faithful you were to me and how dedicated you were. So that's what it meant being real. That Abraham, not only did he have kindness, not only did he have generosity, but he also had givurah. He had strength. He was able to overcome that kindness. As we all know in life, sometimes we can be very kind people, but sometimes it's not a time for kindness. We have to be able to break out of our nature, like Abraham did. Right? Sometimes in Israel, Jewish people are very kind people. Sometimes we have to display strength, as much as we don't like to do it, but we have to overcome our kindness and do what we have to do to save the world, to save Israel, to save the planet. So the Jewish people, sometimes we are called collectively to, we are kind people, we are a generous people, but sometimes it's not a time for that. And we need to show that we can reveal a part of us that is strong. Okay, so that's overcoming our kindness itself. And that's what makes us real. But the question is, over here, why does, when they speak about Abraham, they still keep on saying, even after he showed his strength, they keep on calling him still Abraham, the beloved one, the kind one, the generous one. Why is that still his attribute that they keep on talking about, if we see that Abraham displayed strength as well? So I'm going to answer that question with a story from the Talmud. A very lengthy story in the Talmud. You could look it up yourself. It's a tractate of the Zara, I think, page 8. And this story of a very, very famous rabbi, one of the 10 martyrs in the times of the Romans. We all know that the Romans ruthlessly destroyed the Second Temple. Titus and his cronies, they came in, they marched in on Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. A number of years later, the Jews tried to rebel with Bar Kokhba. Maybe like 50 years later, it was the Great Rebellion, and it was quashed again by the Romans. That time was a very, very difficult time for the Jewish people. And we read about the 10 martyrs in that era. There were 10 famous martyrs. It didn't necessarily happen right at the same time, but it was in that era that these 10 great rabbis were killed. And we read about it on Yom Kippur, the peak of Yom Kippur, at the end of Musaf, we read about the 10 martyrs. We read about them in numerous other liturgical sections, notably on Tisha B'Av. I think I'm still unstable over here. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, thumbs up. Okay, fine. Sorry about the connection today. We're not so connected. So it was at that era that there were many great rabbis, like Rabbi Akiva, who were in the most cruel way murdered by the Romans. One of the rabbis at the time was a rabbi whose name was Rabbi Hanina ben Tradian. Rabbi Hanina, so the famous Rabbi Hanina, he just couldn't stop studying Torah. As much as the Romans said it's forbidden to study Torah, he studied Torah, not only himself, he had yeshivas and he had students. And his colleague, Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma, got sick. And he was like on his deathbed, very, very, very sick. And Rabbi Hanina ben Tradian came to visit Rabbi Yossi. So Hanina comes to visit Yossi. He comes to see him in his house. And Yossi is very sick, but he's a great rabbi. Rabbi Yossi is a colleague of Rabbi Hanina ben Tradian, maybe a Rebbe, a teacher of his, a little older. And Rabbi Yossi asks Chanina, he says, Rabbi Chanina, why do you put your life in danger for the study of Torah? We know that studying of Torah is very important, but there's only 3 mitzvahs that you have to be ready to die for. And Torah study is not one of them. So why do you put your life at risk? And Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian tells Rabbi Yossi, he says, this is what I do. I can't stop it. He says, but you're putting your life at risk. He says, Min hashamayim yirachamu. Heaven will help. This is what he told Rabbi Yossi. He says, but they're gonna grab you and burn you and destroy you with your Torah scrolls. Rabbi Chanina said, from heaven they will have mercy on me. But Rabbi Chanina asked Rabbi Yossi, who was dying, he says, tell me, if I do die, will I merit to the world to come? Okay, he's asking the question. Because his master, his teacher, or his colleague, Rabbi Yossi, is upset with him, right? For studying Torah and putting his life at risk. He says, but will I merit the world to come? So Rabbi Yossi thinks and he says, tell me, Chanina, is there any good deed that you have done that should make you worthy? Tell me about it. Klum ma'aseh bo liyotcha, something, some good deed. Have you done something special? Rabbi Chanina thinks and he says, yes, something special this year happened. It was on Purim. And I was about to prepare the meals for Purim, preparations for Purim. And I also was busy collecting money for tzedakah. And what happened was the money for tzedakah that I was collecting for the poor got mixed up with my own money that I had prepared to buy the Purim meals and to buy shalach manos and other things, right? So my own money got mixed up. Purim money got mixed up with the charity money. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to take any chances. And I'm going to give all the money I have for the poor. And I gave away all my personal money that I had in my pocket, which was commingled with the charity money, just not to have any doubts or questions, chas v'shalom, to steal from the poor. I gave it all away to tzedakah. So Rabbi Yossi said, that's incredible. He says, that's something special. He says, you're going to have such a portion in the world to come that I want that my portion should be with yours together. May my portion be with yours. In other words, you're going to get a real hefty, gesunde, geschmacke, shtickle in Olam Haba, something so special that I want to be like, because you gave that money to the tzedakah. That you gave all the commingled money in your pocket. You know, the rabbi's charity, sometimes I have it also. I have always, like, I keep 2 pockets, you know. I keep one pocket where I keep my own money, and the other pocket I keep when somebody gives me some money for tzedakah. Very often it happens because I make sure I have 2 pockets. Otherwise, if I put it in the same pocket and try to remember, then afterwards you always forget. I make sure, chas v'sholem, not to mix. So I have 1 pocket for myself and 1 pocket for tzedakah. This way, even if I don't remember who the money was from, at least I know it's the charity money. That's the way I do it. But again, sometimes I also mix it together, and I learned from Rabbi Chanina that if it mixes together, it all goes to tzedakah. Then you get a big portion of the world to come. But here is a big question over here. What's going on over here? What's going on over here in this story? It's totally not understood. The story. Many questions on the story. Here you have this great Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian, who was ready to die for Torah study. He was putting his life on the line. And he was ready to How was it that he thought that he asked his Rebbe, am I going to get a portion of the world to come? I forgot to let me first tell you the end of the story. I'll get back to my questions afterwards. My questions should come afterwards. So what's the rest of the story? The rest of the story was, after Rabbi Yosef and Kisma promises Rabbi Chanina the portion of the world to come, a big portion, because of his good deeds, Rabbi Yossi passes away. Remember I told you he was very sick. Rabbi Yossi passes away, and he's brought out on the streets, and everybody's eulogizing him. And all the Romans, they eulogized him as well, because he was one of the greatest rabbis, so the Romans even came to eulogize him. They came to the eulogies and to his funeral. Because this rabbi was the rabbi who was very sort of telling the other rabbis not to rock the boat, right? So therefore they held of him, because he was the one that was telling the Jews, take it easy, don't spread Torah in public, right? So they came to his funeral. They were there, they eulogized him. On the way home, the Romans, they saw Rabbi Chanina Betradi right after the funeral. He was back on the streets teaching the children. He was teaching Torah. He had a day school, whatever, he was teaching Torah. In those days, they used to have the Torah scroll. He had the Torah scroll opened, and he's teaching the kids Torah. So the Romans got so angry at him, they arrested him. They brought him into the Torah scroll, with the Torah scroll, into the town square. And they gathered everybody together, and they started a fire, and they wrapped the rabbi in his Torah. They took the Torah, wrapped. We imagine the scene. They took the Torah. By the way, all the enemies of the Jews, they all know what Torahs are. In fact, just now they went to Assad's palace, and they went down to the basement. And what did he have in the basement? Sure, yeah, he had fancy cars, a lot of fancy cars, a lot of nice Corvettes and other fancy cars he had there. But he also had, listen to this one. What did he have in his treasures? He kept a Torah scroll 500 years old. They opened it up and they rolled it open. You could see it. Beautiful Torah writing. 500-year-old Torah. Probably from the Chalabi Jews or whatever, from the Jews. There was a big Jewish community there for many, many years. Before 1948, there was 40,000 Jews that lived but that community was for many, many years there. The oldest, not Torah, but there was a Chumash, a book that they used to use to, it's called the Codex, which was over 1,000 years old. The Rambam talks about it in his book, that the scribes used to take and write from that Codex. It was like a scroll, but it had the entire Torah, which all the scribes used to write Torahs from, was in that place in Aleppo, in Syria. That's where they kept it. It's 1,200, 100 years old. That was the oldest known document of Torah. But Assad had a Torah scroll 500 years old in his treasures. That's what he kept in his treasures. Even the Gentiles, they know they want to be safe and they want to have they keep a Torah scroll. So he kept that was like a community treasure, which he had. So going back to our story a few hundred years earlier, 1,000 years earlier. So this must have been around the year 120, somewhere around there, right? Somewhere around the year 120 of the common era of us. Today we're 2024, right? Going on 25. This is around the year 120. So we're looking at about close to 2,000 years ago. So they take the rabbi. They see he's starting. They start a fire on the town square. And they take him and they roll him up in the Torah scroll. And they put wet tufts on his chest, so that the fire should burn a long time and shouldn't burn him up, right? So they put him in the town square, and they start the fire, and they're burning the rabbi. A rabbi with his Torah scroll being, his students were there, everybody gathered there. Student says, Rabbi, what do you see? He says, I see the parchments are burning, but the letters are flying. The famous line from the rabbi said that the parchments of the Torah scroll, Chanina is saying while he's burning, he's saying the Torah is the scroll is burning, but the letters are not. The letters are flying up to the heavens. He was able to see the flying letters. Actually, in our shul, if you come to our shul, you'll see on our mechitza in the shul, the separation between the man and the woman section, there's the image on it, and it's flying letters. Because flying letters is one of the themes of the Jewish people, that they can destroy our body, but our spirit they can never destroy. That's the beautiful line of it. The burning parchments, that means the body they burn, but the message of the Jewish people, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, the eternity of Israel will never be destroyed. Eternity does not lie. The letters keep on flying. What a story. It's an incredible story. And then but you should know that I'm giving a class also on medical ethics. And this is where some of the deepest ideas of medical ethics comes from this particular story, believe it or not. From this story, one of the most important concepts in medical ethics that we have today in the Code of Jewish Law is based on this story. Because afterwards, after the students asked him what you see, they asked him, Rabbi, can you open your mouth so you'll get the fumes and the fire will go in and you'll die faster? Now, can you swallow the toxic fumes? Open your mouth and then you'll die faster. So he says, I will not do anything to hasten my death. I will only allow Hashem to take my soul. So he was not prepared to open up his mouth because that might cause him to die a minute earlier. And it continues to burn, and the executioner, who was a Gentile, says, Rabbi, if I take off the tufts off your chest and that way alleviate your suffering, will I merit a portion in the world to come? Everybody knows is worried about the world to come, as you see. Even the executioner, right? So he says, if I take off your tufts, will you give me a section in a pace of the world to come? The rabbi said, yes. That's interesting, it's an interesting thing that to open his mouth, he wouldn't do. He wouldn't do something to do active euthanasia. He wouldn't do that. But passive euthanasia, just to remove the tufts, which was an external thing that was stopping him from dying, that he agreed to. Also, he wasn't doing it himself. It was the Gentile executioner that was doing it. So that's another thing to think about. But you see over here, and that's brought in the Code of Jewish Law, that active euthanasia is totally forbidden, and certain forms of passive euthanasia might be okay. And therefore, the Code of Jewish Law says that if there's somebody in the room outside that's chopping wood, a wood chopper, and that's keeping the person from dying, the noise, you can take away the noise, because that's just an external thing that's superficially, externally holding the person from dying. That you can do. So to take away external things, that's allowed, but not to do any active act. Okay, but that's just sort of a sidebar. That belongs to my medical ethics class. So if you come to that, you'll hear a little bit more about that. And it's based on this Gemara. So the Jewish outlook on euthanasia and MAID, which today we know what MAID is. It's a whole brand new thing that's come into place. This is a foundational piece regarding that. And then we go on a little further, and it says that the executioner, once he heard that he has a portion of the world to come, this is what the Gemara says, the executioner, he knew he was home free. So it says that he jumped into the fire with Rabbi Chanina and Plotkin, and they both died together. And the Rabbi who was present, the Rabbi was a student of the rabbi. He always happens to be present in many of these things, or maybe he said later, he says, here you have a person, an executioner, who achieved the world to come in 1 second by helping out the rabbi, giving him a little bit less suffering. He was koina ilama b'shah achas. Anyways, so that's a story. That's basically the story. So this is what happened to the rabbi. But the question is, getting back to our initial question was, why did the rabbi ask Rabbi Yossi, his teacher or his colleague that he came to visit when he was sick? Why did he ask him if he's going to have a portion of the world to come? How could a man like this not have a portion of the world to come? A man that was living a life prepared to die for God. And then when the rabbi gives him an answer, what does the rabbi answer him? What does Rabbi Yossi answer? He doesn't say, he should have said, yeah, of course you could have a portion of the world to come, because you're such a pious man. He doesn't say that. The rabbi says, tell me, is there something, some kind of good deed that you did in your life? What do you mean a good deed? Every day he was doing good deeds. He was studying Torah. He was putting his life on the line. The rabbi says, tell me some good deed. And then he comes up with some obscure good deed that he did in his life. That one time on Purim, he didn't mix he gave more charity than he was supposed to give, and he gave his money for the Purim meal. He gave it away to the poor because he didn't want to commingle the monies, right? That's the thing that gave him the place in the world to come? So this is where my message for today comes about being real. What's real? What's the answer? The answer is like this. The answer is, why did he ask the rabbi whether I have a portion of the world to come? Because he knew that he loved studying Torah. Rabbi Yechanina knew that that was his thing. He was crazy about studying Torah. He was obsessed with it. He loved studying Torah more than anything else in his life. That's what he did his whole life. And so when he had a free moment, he was busy studying and teaching. He wasn't just a learner. He also was a teacher. He loved teaching it. That's what he did his whole life. So he wasn't going to change that. That was his nature. So we don't know. So when he came to Rabbi Yossi, his master, he says, Master, am I meritorious for the portion of the world to come? Because maybe my whole studying is just, I'm sort of like an introvert. I like studying. That's what I do. I study Torah. I'm an introvert. I'm not a real person. Right? I'm not a real individual. I'm just doing what I'm comfortable with. So that's why he asked, will I get a place in the world to come? Because I just did my whole life what I'm good at, what I know how to do. But am I a real person? So then Rabbi Yossi says, I'll tell you if you're a real person. If you're meritorious for the world to come, whether you did whatever you did, because that's your nature, or you did it for Hashem, I'll prove it to you. Tell me, is there something else that you did that was to help other people and going out of yourself and not being introvert? Is there something that you did in your life, a Jewish thing that was an extrovert thing? And he says, yeah, the story of Purim. I gave tzedakah, more tzedakah than I was ready to give. I gave extra. So then Rabbi Yossi says, so that proves that whatever you did, the Torah study that you did also was for Hashem as well. Because you were ready to go out of your nature of being an introvert, and you were able to do extrovert things for Hashem, even though you didn't do it your whole life, but you did that too for Hashem. So that proves that you were real, that even when you did the Torah study, that some people could have argued and says you study Torah only because that's your nature, you love doing that. No. We see from the charity that you gave that you went out of yourself to help other poor people. That proved that you were not in it for yourself. It wasn't a selfish activity. It wasn't something that it was your nature, but you did it, you were real because you did it for the cause. You did it for God. And this, my friends, is Avrohom Avinu as well. That was our initial question. If you remember, the initial question of this class was, why does it mention only about Avrohom being a kind person? when at the end of his life, he was ready to be a strong person as well. So why doesn't it mention that test that he passed by God, by being a gibor, by having gvura? And the answer is no. After Avraham Avinu passed the test, it proved that his kindness was real as well. Now, some people, they do kindness because they're born kind, right? Some people just can't hurt a fly. They're kind because, not because they're doing what's right or they're doing for the cause. They do it because that's their nature, right? But how do we know that's for real? How do we know that kindness is real? We know it's real when you have to do what's right. Sometimes you overcome your kindness and you do things with strength. Like parenting, for instance, right? Person, they're the best parent. Yeah, the best parent, they spoil the kids rotten. They're kind. That's what they do. But are they ready to discipline the child when they have to? Now, if they're ready to discipline the child, even though they're very kind, then you know that they're a good parent. They're a real parent. If they're just giving, you don't know they're real. But when you see that when the time comes and they see their kids are getting spoiled rotten, they say, sorry, no more now. Now we have to discipline you. Now we have to tell you no. If they're prepared to say no, that validates the yes. Then the yes becomes real. If it's always yes, then it means nothing. It means just that you're comfortable with that. When do we know it's for real? It's after when you're able to go against yourself for the cause. Like Rabbi Hanina that was able to give tzedakah even though he always studied Torah. Like Avrohom Avinu, who was able to bring his son up to the altar even though he was the kindest man on earth. These kind of acts in life validate and make our beautiful qualities real. The state of Israel is a real kind country, generous country, only when they're able to stand up and do what they have to do over the last year. That proves that they're real. That when they do give kindness, it's not just we're just a kind people. No, we're doing it because that's what's right. And that's what the calling of the time is. So that same person who always gives and is always generous and helping the underdogs, the Jewish people, that's our greatness. That we're Rachmanim, we are merciful people. We are Baishonim, we are bashful people. Goyim l'chasadim, we are charitable. But we don't know that that's real until when our calling comes to go against everything else, to go and do what we have to do with the wartime. Because we know that's the only way to bring peace to the world. We have to fight evil with the way evil understands it. When we're ready to do that, that validates our kindness as well. That shows that our kindness, that we generally are, is real. Because it's for the cause, it's for what's right, it's for the emes. And that, my friend, is about being real. So please God, we should all use out all the good qualities we have, and we should all pass the tests when we have to. And by balancing ourselves in our lives and doing what we have to do at the right times, that way we become closer to God, and we become closer to ourselves, and we become better and more perfect, and most important, real people. And that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyways, have a good Shabbos, everybody. Anyone have a question? Any questions out there? If you have a question, you can unmute yourself. And if not, it's also good.
Thank you so much. It was heartwarming.
Yeah. Beautiful. Rabbi, that was very important what you talked about. And I think everybody always has that question in their mind. Thank you for validating it.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Shalom, everyone. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Wonderful. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great Shabbos.
Bye-bye.
Have a great Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Have a good Shabbos. Bye. Thank you. Yeah. That was really very insightful. You enjoyed that, Yossi?